Basically, I was going to buy my foyer or my house a Rolex. And that's kind of what that is. That's my house Rolex. Spend money on landscaping. Having a master on the main, in my opinion, is a must. The bathroom, another thing that I personally would recommend you spend the money on. And instead of having like cheap gas logs, what we ended up doing, so one of the most stressful things that somebody can do is build a custom home, all right? And I know because I've done it twice in the past 7 years. Well, one of the reasons why I feel like it's so stressful is that a lot of people don't know what they're getting into ahead of time. And so today, what I want to do is go over some of the things that I have learned over the past 7 years in 2 builds in order to help you understand what you're getting into before you all freak out and you're like, oh my God, it's over budget, and you have a bad experience. So for this video, I'm going to go over a bunch of different components to the custom house building process, right? The first step we got to talk about is finding the land. Then we're going to talk about the architect. Then we're going to talk about finding your builder. And then we're going to go over some of the things that I have learned actually building in terms of things you should consider or where to spend the money. Because when it comes to building a custom home, that's one of the things. You've got to pick and choose what you're going to do and how you're going to spend money to maximize your enjoyment, but also not waste a ton of cash. The first house I built is this bad boy right here. It is 5,700 square feet of awesomeness. I'm going to link down below to the home tour video that I did about 5 years ago, and this has been an amazing house. All right, now, how do we buy it? How do we do it? How do we build it? Well, number one is you got to find the property. You got to find the land or the lot that you're going to be building on. A few tips I'd like to give you is number one, do tests ahead of time to make sure that the soil is suitable. All right, you got to spend a little bit of extra money, personally, in my opinion, to make sure that the house that you're going to be constructing or building is able to be built there. Because in the new house that I'm building, I didn't do that. All right, this house, I got lucky. All right, the lot was here. There was already a house on the property that they tore down. So in those situations or cases, typically you're going to have a better feel or a better idea that the lot is going to be suitable. Because if they already built a house, it's probably going to be all right for you, but not necessarily. The lot that I bought that actually the new house is on, I didn't realize, well, okay, back up. I knew that there was an issue. I knew that there was a storm drain running through the property because typically when somebody is selling a piece of property or lot, they have to disclose if there's any issues that they know of. But it's what you don't know that typically is going to be the expensive problem to fix. And actually, it's hot. Let's go inside. It's not what you know, it's what you don't know. And so when I bought the second lot, I knew that there was a storm drain that I was going to have to move depending on how I wanted to situate the house. And so I reached out to an engineer before I actually purchased the lot. And I said, hey, how much is it going to cost in order to move the storm drain? And they gave me a quote of around $40,000. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a decent price on the lot. At the time, it was, I think, like $330,000. It was a full acre. And so I was like, all right, even if I have to move that drain, it's $40,000. Now I'm in about $370 for a full acre. That was great because the current house that I have in the lot is basically like half of that. And the price that I paid here was like $220. And this was literally like 7 years ago. The price has gone up since then. And so I thought, okay, you got to do the math and you got to figure out that, all right, this is probably going to be okay. Well, I bought the lot, and then when we actually started to do the whole building of that new house, I found out that the quote was wrong, all right? Instead of $40,000, it was going to be $180,000 to move this giant pipe. But I was stuck, right? What do I do? Am I going to not do the house? No. And so I had to basically spend that extra money. That is something you got to be aware of, all right? Something else that I was not aware of because I didn't do the due diligence ahead of time is that the soil, it was unsuitable, meaning it's not strong enough or stable enough in order to build a house without doing something special. So what did I have to do? Helical piers. Under my new house, I had to basically then pay for 147 helical piers. Helical piers are basically like metal screws that they screw down into the ground. Once it hits a certain kip or pressure, they basically cut it, they cap it, and then they anchor it and tie it into the grade beams and your foundation. When you have to do something like that, it's going to increase the cost of not only the cost of those helical piers, which is about $20 to $30 per linear foot. And if they're going down, say 20 feet, do the math, 147 of them, it adds up, right? And then it's going to add price and cost to adding extra rebar into the foundation because they've got to anchor it and tie it into the foundation of the house. Extra money. all right? And then, for me, I didn't realize this either. I had to basically bring in 650 loads of extra dirt in order to fill in and fill up the center of the house. All of these expenses I didn't know ahead of time. And so these expenses added up big time. And so one of the ways that you can minimize these like really big unexpected expenses is do your due diligence ahead of time. Make sure that you have a soil analysis done. Make sure that you know like what's under there. Like if it was a toxic waste dump, this is gonna be bad. If there are tires that are buried that need to be extracted, you need to make sure you know what you're building on before you buy it, hopefully. Step number 2 is find an architect, all right? And the reason why you have to do it in this order is because you can't just find an architect and say, build me a house or design me a house without knowing what the topography of the land is, what the size is, what the shape is. You gotta have the land first, all right? And so step number 2 is find an architect. How are you gonna do that? For me, it was pretty simple. I basically went to neighborhoods in the area that I liked the houses, and I did a little Google search to see like, okay, who are the best architects or who are the architects that are building or designing the houses that I enjoy and the houses that I like. And so I found this one guy who was doing a lot of the houses in the area, and I'm like, yeah, let me go in and talk to him. I talked to him, and the price I felt was affordable. All right, now, in terms of what the prices are, for him, for the first house, this one, it was around $10,000 for the plans. But some of you are like, damn, $10,000, that's expensive. Here's the deal. You can actually find pre-designed houses online. There are a lot of like blueprints and templates that you can actually buy for a much more affordable price if you've got like a standard lot or you have the lot and you just need to go and find something that basically can fit and that will meet your needs. And so there are cheaper alternatives out there, all right? And so we met with him, we told him, hey, what do we wanna do? Well, one thing that I would recommend each and every one of you do is a master on the main. One of the things that you're gonna find is stairs kind of suck, but having the ability to just come, right, walk down, laundry room there, boom, you're in here, right? Bedroom, master, on main, a must, in my opinion. Something else that we did is basically connect the closets to the laundry room. And so we went to the architect, we sat down, we said, this is kind of what we want. And then literally in like real time, he sat there with us and helped us kind of design this main level. Now, something else to understand is that the expense in terms of a house isn't going up. Like adding a second story, that's not the expense. It's the foundation, right? And so if you want some big like sprawling ranch, that's typically going to be a little bit more expensive than building like a 2 or 3 story house, all right? The expense is in the concrete, it's in the foundation. Going up, the wood, it's not that expensive, all right? Anyway, back to the architect. So we worked with him and it was great. He did the plans and then we had to pick a builder. How did we do that? Well, we asked him for a recommendation. Typically what you're going to find is that when you're working with an architect, he will have relationships with the builders that he feels comfortable with. And so we ended up having 2 recommendations. We interviewed the 2 builders, and one of the builders I felt was a better choice. And then I actually asked him, hey, can I go and see one of your newly constructed houses? So we literally got to walk through one of his actual houses that he built, and my wife and I fell in love. We're like, this is great, this is incredible, like, let's do it. And I just got a good vibe from him. Now, in terms of builders, there are a few ways that you can go about paying them, right? Because this is one of the big question marks, all right? You've got a builder that basically will come in, you take them the finished plans, and that's the other reason why you need the construction documents prior to actually finding a builder, is that you need to take them the drawings for him to quote it. And so the first way is you meet somebody, a builder, and he's like, okay, I can build this house for $800,000, $1 million, whatever. And that will include his fee, all right? His fee isn't gonna be like chopped out. And so the good news is that you pretty much have a good idea of what you're going to spend on the project, but he is going to have allowances for you, meaning like for kitchen cabinets, he's going to say like this is what he is allocated or is estimating in order to really nail that accurate that price that he basically gave you. And if you decide to go above that, like if he gives you a budget of $20,000 for lighting and you're like, but I want better lighting, right? And you want $30,000, then you may have to come out of pocket $10,000 in order to get that, because he's going to protect his margin. One of the downsides of going with a builder that just basically builds for a cost is that he is incentivized to help you build the house as cheaply as possible because he wants to make as much profit. Which brings me to the second option for builders, and that is cost plus, all right? Cost plus basically is you and the builder are on the same team, where he is going to build you the house and he is going to not upcharge you or basically add any fees to what it actually costs to construct the house. How he's going to get paid is his percentage. So typically what it's going to be is between 15 to 20%, all right? And this is cost plus. So if it costs $1 million to build, if he's 15%, right, you know you're going to spend $1 million plus his percentage of 15%, which is $150,000, that's going to basically be the total cost that you're going to spend. The good news, you're on the same team. The bad news is that as things come up and as other expenses arise or as unforeseen issues happen, you're going to be paying him 15% on these things that you didn't know actually were going to exist. The third option is what I actually did on the new house, and that is I went to the builder that was recommended through the architect, through the designer, through everybody that I was going to be using, and I sat down with him with the plans and I said, how much can I build this house for? And what will you charge me to do that? And so basically he gave me an estimate of, I think I can build this house for this. And to do that, this is going to be my fee. And the fee is a fixed fee that you know you're going to be paying. Now, the good news is that if the cost of the house actually goes up, which mine did, his fee stays the same. And so unlike cost plus, where it's like as the cost increases, his amount of money that he actually makes goes up, his fee is actually fixed in this scenario, which for this new house, because it literally is over budget, like a few like million bucks, is good for me, bad for him. By bad, I mean like he's just not making that percentage that somebody that was cost plus would actually make. All right, now, the next step is deciding whether or not you're gonna be hiring a designer, all right? Now, I'm going to tell you the truth. There are certain things that I'm going to share with you a little bit later in this video. We're going to go over to the new house. I'm going to show you some of the things. There is zero chance that this current house that I'm living in would be as awesome as it is. And there is 1,000% zero chance that, or I should say a negative 1,000% zero chance that my new house would be the way that it is without designers. Designers, honestly, that is one of those expenses that I know that like on paper, it's like, I don't know, I don't want to. It is worth it. Now, the truth is that there are different levels of those as well, right? Just like there are different level of everything, you know, different designers are going to charge different ways. You know, you've got some that are a little bit more like friends and family helping you out. There are others that are a little bit more professional, and there are some that literally are going to rip your eyes out because it's so expensive. But typically with designers, from my experience, a lot of times you get what you pay for. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true, all right? One of the other things I'd just like to mention before I go over to the next house or the other house and continue this little lesson is kitchens, all right? One of the areas that I personally would recommend spending the money is the kitchen, more specifically on the cabinetry, all right? Because they're gonna ask you, they're gonna be like, hey, do you wanna go with a builder grade cabinet or do you wanna do something custom? And then they're gonna show you the price and you're gonna be like, oh my God, custom's so much more expensive. But custom cabinets and custom kitchens look 10 times better, all right? Good example, all right, right here, you see, all right, our cabinets go all the way up to the ceiling. The ceiling's 10 feet, all right? If they were gonna try and do this kitchen or your kitchen with just standard like cabinets, they're not gonna go all the way up to the ceiling. And so you're gonna have like a big like recessed ledge on the top between the ceiling and the cabinets, which is gonna collect dust, and it just doesn't look as high-end and premium, all right? Something else is the refrigerator, right? If you're going with basically like a standard like cabinetry package, you're not gonna have the ability to have a very sexy like built-in refrigerator like this, right? And in my opinion, it makes a huge difference. Have you ever gone into a place, right, and you see like the refrigerator's just kind of like in this like box looking area and there's like space on the side, or maybe the refrigerator's sticking out a little bit, gentlemen, that's not as good, right? And so go custom with the cabinetry. In my opinion, is it more expensive? Yes. Having a pantry or some type of like back kitchen is not something that a lot of dudes think of, But I'm telling you, this is one of the greatest things because, you know, you can keep a lot of your crap back here. You could have like a place to do like, you know, baking or whatever. And if you're having like company, you can shut the door. It is incredibly convenient. It's also super handy. And so having some type of back pantry also, in my opinion, is a must. And when we go over next door, I'm going to tell you about that architect because, like I said, there's levels of everything. And that architect made like over $100,000 on the plans for that house. But I'm going to explain why after we go over there. All right. Something else I'd just like to mention that I have absolutely loved are fireplaces. I am a huge fireplace fanatic. Now, when we were doing the fireplace, that was another question. Like, do you want to do it? How do you want to do it? Do you want it to be like real wood burning? For us, what we said is no, let's just do gas. And instead of having like cheap like gas logs, what we ended up doing is painting the inside black and then doing these little like fire balls. And so it's a little bit more modern, a little bit cleaner. And in my opinion, it is super sexy and just super cool. All right. Something else that's super cool are lights, which we're going to talk about these next door. Let's go. So when it comes to really maximizing your budget, when it comes to your house and making it look the best it can, there are certain areas that you can save money, but in my opinion, one of the areas that you should invest a little bit more is the lighting, right? The decorative lighting. Think of them as kind of like accessories, like a nice watch or like a nice earring. Not that earrings are nice, but you get what I'm saying. It's the bling, right? It's kind of like bling. And so when you're going and you're basically deciding on different things, don't skimp on the lighting, all right? Just a few other like cool, like boom, look at that bad boy, right? Kitchen lights, ooh. Here, table, look at this. My room, what? Are you kidding me? All right, so I shouldn't be showing you all this, but check it out. My office, oh geez, look how sexy, right? Wow, this room is so sick. We went super dark with the walls. It's just so sexy. But once again, lighting, right? Once again, boom, nice light in there. All right, staircase, cool sconces, boom, lighting, lighting, lighting. The one thing that my designer was really pissed at is that our bedroom, she was like, oh, we want to do like a beautiful, like big chandelier. I go, I need a fan, right? My wife and I, like, we sleep with a fan literally every single night. And so we needed a fan, but check out this view, right? Boom, bedroom, right? You've got the pool, you've got the limestone, you've got our beautiful outdoor area, right? You're gonna have a water feature over there. It's gonna come down, it's gonna go out there. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Anyway, as you can see, the design level is elevated, all right? Speaking of elevated, let me show you this real quick. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be giving you a home tour, but what? The bathroom, another thing that I personally would recommend you spend the money on, all right? Bathrooms are a big thing. I'm also getting a urinal. We've got two different actual, like, I've got my own like toilet. My wife has her own. Anyway, so yeah, we're still working, finishing things up, but it's coming along. Yep, lighting up here in my closet, lighting in her closet. Guys, I'm telling you, the lighting makes a huge difference. And once again, boom, laundry room off of the closet. That's another thing that you don't think of, but it definitely makes a big difference, all right? So let me show you something else. I was talking about architects, right? Different levels. Let me show you all of this. For this house, right? Look at all, this is all literally the plans. All of this right here, all this is simply the plans for all the cabinetry, all right? And then, boom, over here, you've got, essentially, it's like 50 pages worth of detail for the house. The difference with this architect versus my other one is that they literally specify every single detail. Everything from, right, the trim, right, everything from, actually check this one. This one is another sconce. Check that out. That's actually like horsehair, but with that one right there. Did you, like, okay, so here's the deal. I'm gonna tell you something I shouldn't probably tell you. So this chandelier, right, when my designer was like, hey, here's an example, or here are all the lights that we like. What do you think? And so I'm like, yeah, I like them, but I need to see the price. Like, I can't tell if I like something until I know how expensive it is, right? Because if you tell me it's $1,000, I love it. If you tell me it's $20,000, I hate it. You get it, right? Well, that's one of the things. When you're using a designer, you can always go back to them and say, hey, this is outside of our budget, or I'm not spending this for that. You've got to make sure that you massage things. Spend the money where you need to in order to maximize the aesthetic or the house, but save money where you can. If they're a good designer, they'll be able to come back and say, okay, here's more affordable options. But once again, it kind of depends on sort of like how they're getting paid. Long story, I'm not going to go into all the designer stuff, but like this chandelier, it's 300 pounds. It's all these crystals. They sent this to me and I fell in love with it. I absolutely loved it. And I'm like, man, how much is it? And she told me, I'm like, that's crazy. Send me some other options. And she did. But I still kept thinking about this chandelier. And when it's on, it's just perfect, right? Anyway, and so I decided, okay, because this is in the foyer, everybody sees it, and it's kind of really one of those statement pieces. Basically, I was going to buy my foyer or my house a Rolex, and that's kind of what that is. That's my house Rolex. Anyway, back to the architect. She's specifying everything, all the details, the trim, but also all of the brick, literally everything. And so there are no questions, because one of the things that you got to understand is that when the builder comes to you and is like, hey, we've got a question about this, or what do you think about that? Either you're going to answer it or somebody else is going to answer it. The more you spend on an architect, a lot of times, the more detail you're going to get, the better the plans are going to be, and the less question there's going to be when it comes to the builder actually executing the architect's vision. And a lot of times what I found is when you have and work with people up front and you hire everybody as a team up front, it's a lot better of an experience, all right? In my other house, what I basically did is I went to the architect, and then I found the builder, and then I'm like, wait a second, I need to have answers as to the tile and this and that, and then I went and hired a designer, when the designer honestly should be brought in early on in the process in order to really make your house better. Because I'm not saying my taste sucks, but there are other people that do this for a living that are a lot better than I am. Getting opinions and getting help has been invaluable for me. Speaking of help, your help, what do you think? The pipes? Black? Better? Oh my goodness, gentlemen. Come on, come on. You guys picked it. You told me black, and they look so amazing, right? Oh God, so good. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for your advice and helping. Truth is, building a house, it's not that complicated, right? You've got to follow the steps, you've got to follow the design, and the more work the architect does, basically the more detailed the plans, the less that the builder has to actually guess. But that being said, the builder is only going to be as good as the subcontractors are that he has in his back pocket, all right? The subcontractors that this builder that I'm using on this house versus my old house are different, right? Once again, it's different level. These people are used to doing premier, luxury homes. My other builder has amazing subs and they did an incredible job, but it's a different level. There's always different levels. And the last thing I'd like to mention, and the last thing you're going to think of is landscaping. Landscaping. Everybody leaves landscaping to last because it's the last thing you do. And typically what happens is you've run out of money because everything went over, which is going to be something I'm going to talk about in a second. And they're like, yo, I don't have any money left. And if the builder that you're paying basically is an all-in cost and you're not doing cost plus, right? He's going to be like, yo, I'm going to put some grass down and have some 2 plants. Ever gone to somebody's house or gone and seen a house, a new construction, and it just looked like they forgot to plant plants? Spend money on landscaping. In my opinion and experience, it makes a huge difference on the way that the actual house and the property looks, all right? Just to show you, look at this, right? We went all in. Look how pretty that is, right? Now, the downside to landscaping is that you've got to pay for it to put it in, and then you've got to pay for it to be maintained. But I'm telling you, landscaping makes such a huge difference on the way that a house looks, right? Because if you really want to make it pop and have that curb appeal, you got to make sure you have good plants. Now, how can you find a good landscaper that can do this? Typically, your builder is going to have somebody, or your architect will recommend, all right? In my house that I'm using now, or that I'm building now, we actually used a landscape architect that basically designed and was, once again, part of the team and part of the process to make sure that everything is cohesive and everything is, you know, just looking the way that they want it to look. And ultimately the way that I want it to look, which is amazing and sexy. All right, the last thing I just want to mention is budget. You gotta understand that if you are building a house, it is typically gonna go over budget. What they say is on average, it's about 20% more. You should have the access or the ability for 20% more cash because you always go over. There always are overages, all right? And even if you're building something with somebody that's like, yo, it's an all-in fee, a lot of times there are gonna be things that come up. And so one of the things that makes it so stressful for people to build a house is the lack of money or thinking that, oh, this is how much it's gonna cost, all right? Typically, you gotta be prepared. You gotta be ready to spend a little extra. If it means you've gotta wait in order to save a little bit more before you do, or get a bigger loan, you can always pay that loan off, that construction loan. But the bottom line is building a new house is stressful if you're not prepared. Hopefully you dug this video and it helped prepare you or give you some things to think about when you build your dream home.